This doesn't have to end in a fight, Tony.
You just started a war.
What's going, guys? Aarava here. Welcome back to the Pitlane podcast. It's episode number 12, and of course, this one for the Spanish Grand Prix. And oh my God,
damn!
Just for a second, just contemplate that race. What an absolute crazy race! If you haven't seen the results, here's your spoiler warning. These are the results. The one result, the only one you need to know: Max Verstappen has won the Spanish Grand Prix. Oh my God. And the two Mercedes, well, we'll talk about them. But as usual, with your host, myself and Callum, Tom is not here today because he's off on some religious thing. So he's not going to be on the podcast. But we have got our friendly neighborhood American, Justin. You might know him as Fake Ghost Pirate on Twitter or from Box Gaming on YouTube. What's going on, guys? What do you guys think of the race?
Madness.
Incredible.
Absolutely
madness. Incredible. Yeah, I mean, just fantastic race. I mean, 2016 as a whole has been incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the Russian Grand Prix was it was the Russian Grand Prix, but this season has been absolutely amazing. I'm so happy with how this season is going.
Yeah, I was talking to Cal before the podcast. Just seeing what the two Mercs did, I'm going to spoil it now, obviously. I've given you plenty of time. Two Mercedes crashed out together. This is what basically happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, you two. But basically, Rosberg overtook Hamilton in turn 1. Quite a nice overtake. Then in the middle of turn 3, Hamilton got a worldly exit. Moved towards the right-hand side of the track. Rosberg did the same thing, but a little bit slower. And it basically just looked like Rosberg sort of didn't give Hamilton the room, but Hamilton also hastily moved to that side of the track. Hamilton went on the grass. Obviously, grass, unlike the actual video game, in real life, it's not that grippy. And Hamilton kind of half span, smashed into Rosberg, both Mercs out by turn 4. Crazy stuff. And that really set up our entire race.
Basically an F1 2015 sprint mode lobby. That's basically what you can sum it up. But it's an insane thing because obviously we've seen a huge rivalry between these two drivers, and we saw that in 2014 in Spa that was like the lowest point for Mercedes, and they still had one car finishing, but this is even lower now. Both cars not making it to the end of lap 1. I find it quite funny. I think Matty G actually put on Twitter, Hamilton wasn't even registered. He was that far off the track on the grass. He wasn't even registered as in second place, but absolutely insane. The blame, we'll probably speak about that later on because we'll talk about the podium. But it is going to be a very interesting topic, and we expect lots of arguments on Twitter. There already has been lots of arguments on Twitter. But I'd say stay away from Facebook as well, because Facebook is going to be a waft of Hamilton fans instantly pointing towards Rosberg, whereas a few other people may balance who was at fault, really. But we can have a talk about the podium first, and just Max Verstappen, really. Wow.
Crazy.
How did he do that?
18 years old.
Incredible.
And he's
incredible.
won.
I mean, and there's more to come, surely. I mean, yes, it was a bit of a strange race, obviously, with the Mercs being taken out. So that, of course, gave him a prime opportunity. I mean, let's imagine that they didn't collide. I'm fairly certain he would have finished in 3rd position, which still would have made him the youngest podium sitter of all time. But, I fully believe that, he wasn't going to be beating the Mercs if they hadn't taken each other out. But surely this is just the first of many to come.
Yeah, it's crazy. And obviously, you need a bit of luck sometimes in F1. And obviously, Max has done brilliantly just to not even crack under pressure. I mean, what was it, good 32 laps or something, not having to, having to save the tyres, and then he's got Raikkonen there, pinching at his toes.
It's not like it's any other driver. It's Kimi Raikkonen you're being chased by.
His toes.
It's not an easy thing to do, to fight off Kimi Raikkonen, who did have... I thought he was doing very well. He seems to really be fighting off Vettel. I know it was different strategies which made the race incredible. I don't know why my webcam fucked off, but let's return. But I don't know why I did that. I just can't comprehend that Verstappen, and we've seen Martin Brundle say, get this kid a World Championship winning seat. Well, we've just gone and given him one, and he's just gone and won. What is this alien driver that we've got on our hands at the minute?
Yeah, it sort of makes the kind of Kvyat and Verstappen swap a masterclass from Red Bull. Obviously, you can say everything in hindsight. There's no telling that would happen, but everything just fell into place. And it's sort of like we were saying before the podcast, it's sort of almost like, well, not exactly, obviously, because Leicester City did it over an entire season, but it's almost the same sort of thing, such a fairy tale story straight away that you get the swap. No one's really sure how the swap work, and then to actually get a race win straight off the bat. People were joking that Kvyat was gonna, have to like throw himself out the window if Verstappen went ahead and actually won the race.
I made that joke.
Oops.
And he actually did it, so I cannot imagine Kvyat's feelings right now, but oh my god, it's just madness. Obviously, I think big credit to Red Bull as well in terms of the strategy for Max. Really did work out really well for them in terms of putting them on the 2-stop and then just having faith in Max to actually take the car that long on medium tires at the end. So
yeah.
crazy
I didn't
stuff.
think he was going to make it to the end. I tweeted that somewhere around lap 40, I think, with 26 laps remaining.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't see him going to the end and without hitting some sort of cliff or something. And he did it fantastically. And Cal touched on that very briefly. Like, I mean, he managed his tires. He had the pace. I mean, it was just such a mature drive from Max. I mean, and I think it's also important because Max is a kid that was raised on sim racing as well. So I think that's sort of important for our community as well, because it shows how important that can be for someone to go from sim racing into F1. And I mean, Max maybe hasn't done as much sim racing as some of the top guys, but I mean, it's definitely a big part of his life. We've even seen him tweet pictures of him doing iRacing and R Factor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just incredible to see somebody that was kind of raised on sim racing, to see him right up there winning his first race for Red Bull. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, a few people argue, and we talked about this in the last podcast, saying, because I kind of fought in Verstappen's corner, saying, he's not too young to be in Red Bull. There's no such thing as being too young. And obviously he may have a lack of experience, but then again, Justin, you saying he does have experience in, if he does lead a race on a game, but it's still experience. But
yeah, you learn the fundamentals.
Exactly. You've got that experience, even if it's only a little bit, to fight off Kimi Räikkönen. And also, I couldn't believe the top 4, Red Bull versus Ferrari, back in the old days. This is 6 years ago since we last saw this. 6, 7, maybe 2012 was probably the last time. But
yeah.
It's just insane that we had this, and the fact that both teams split their strategies. This is very rare to see in Formula 1, that we see a team split their strategies and we can be halfway through the race and not have a clue who's going to win the race.
Yeah.
Not a Scooby-Doo. We had, probably into the last 10 laps is when we had a good idea that Verstappen was looking good.
Yeah.
But when Ricciardo blew his tyre, we're not sure how his tyre went. Maybe a slight clip from Kvyat, I thought. It could have got very close to Kvyat. But even then, Verstappen's tyre could have easily have gone. So it would have been absolutely insane scenes to see, like, tyres going so late in the race. But got to say, on Ricciardo's point of view, very, very unlucky for him to have another puncture when you're in the front four of the race.
Like China. Yeah, real.
And I think Red Bull thought they were putting Daniel on the safer strategy, to be honest. When they decided to split the strategies, I think they thought they were favoring Ricciardo, when it turned out to be the exact opposite case. But I think they were trying to help Daniel.
Well, we often see that the second driver gets the worst strategy. So we saw that Verstappen was left out, obviously, next lap in the first stop. So it's like, okay, that's not too bad. That was going to happen anyway. But in the second stop, we saw Verstappen stay out an extra 5 laps. And we were like, why are they screwing over Verstappen? We've seen this with Mercedes. They've screwed over Hamilton doing that before. And we're just like, well, what's happening here? And then all of a sudden, Verstappen's like, oh my God, I'm in the race, lead, and I'm on the right strategy. Oh my God, I'm going to win the race. I think it's absolutely madness to see.
I think a lot of it is to do with like Ricciardo and Vettel pitting quite early. Obviously, Vettel we thought he was going to go 2-stop. Then he switched on to 3, kind of reacting to Ricciardo. And obviously that just let Max just stay out and just see how it went. And then it was sort of a case of, hang on, I mean, we could convert this 3-stop into the 2-stop, and that'll literally pull the wool over Sebastian's eyes. And obviously they tried to stick with Max, with Kimi, but then obviously just Max did a great job to keep him behind. Obviously the tyres were going off of both cars, but I think like Max played it quite well. He would be putting Kimi's tyres off a lot by keeping Kimi that close behind him for the entire lap. And then we saw every single time off the last corner, the Red Bull was so good on the traction. Exactly what you sort of almost see in the video game, like against the AI. You just streak off on the final corner at Spain, and you're able to keep out that DRS, or even if you are within DRS, it's not going to be enough. So great tactics from Max as a driver to keep his cool head and just, think like that. I'm pretty sure he would have been definitely thinking about, I've got this advantage in the last corner. Let's just keep it cool. Let's just waltz off in the last corner. Great stuff. So yeah, looking down the order, so obviously Max Verstappen won the race, Kimi Räikkönen second place, and Vettel third. Then we had Ricciardo still managing to get fourth because
Amazingly.
Bottas was so far away from the top four that he still made it through an entire sector with 3 wheels and still made the pit stop and got back into fourth. So that's pretty damn good. Bottas in 5th place. Really quiet race from Williams. I really didn't see them at all, pretty much in the race.
Same for Sainz and Perez. I'd say 5th through 8th. I mean, we saw a bit of Button, not tons, a bit of Button. But yeah, 5th through 8th, Bottas, Sainz, Perez, and Massa, we really didn't see much of them.
Yeah, they were literally nowhere to be seen. To be honest, it was like that. It's amazing for Sainz to get 6th place there at his home race. Obviously, he was really chuffed on the radio. And then, obviously, Perez getting up there in 7th place, Massa 8th, Button with points in 9th, and Danica Fiat just managed to get 10th place there. But, yeah, it was weird. Obviously, the top 4 were having such a kind of, like, nail-biting scrap that the guys didn't want to cut away from that. But, yeah, it was a very...
the thing. It's that one of them battles where you don't want to look away because you'll miss it. And in a race where overtakes were quite sparse, really, there wasn't that many overtakes. We saw some Haas's overtaking each other and Sauber's almost running into each other. But it was... I didn't realise Sainz was in 6th until he got told he was in 6th. Like, I was so focused on the front 4, and then, like you said, we saw a bit of Button overtaking people. We saw Kvyat, who I found that just so funny, how he was following the top 4.
Yeah, that was a bit...
That you couldn't, like Martin Brundle said, you cannot make this script up. The fact that Max Verstappen, the first time he just sat in this seat and he's winning the race, and then you've got Kimi Räikkönen, who is double the age of Verstappen sitting behind him. You've got Vettel and Ricciardo, old teammates going at each other, and then just to top it off, you've got Kvyat following his race car basically, and he's going, I'm a lap down. What am I supposed to do here? Do I overtake? Am I allowed to? I don't think, although there wasn't that many overtakes, you just couldn't make up the script. You really could not make it up.
It was so nail biting. Like it was so like 2012. You know, thinking back to how Maldonado won that race in terms of the tyre wear and just like, is Maldonado going to keep Alonso at bay here? It was pretty much the exact same thing. It was just amazing. It just shows, I think, as a whole, generally in this race. Obviously, we'll never make it happen, but it just shows what happens when the Mercedes are nowhere to be seen. And like you've got a track like this which allows Red Bull to kind of close up on Ferrari through the downforce sectors, and it was so intriguing. Like Cal said before, you just couldn't call who was actually going to win the race halfway through. It was like everyone, the commentators, everyone on Twitter, we're all kind of just debating like, which strategy is going to work out? Like maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen, all the permutations. And in the end, you know, we really couldn't call everything. We couldn't call that Vettel wouldn't catch Raikkonen and Verstappen, because that was a big story of the race, that everyone thought that was the plan. Vettel for Ricciardo would both catch Verstappen and Kimi and just overtake them with ease, because the tyres surely would have gone off, but not the case. Really surprising.
And they were like 2 seconds a lap faster initially when they first put on the new rubber. But yeah, I mean, I guess once the tires hit a certain point, they just kind of level out. So it doesn't matter if you're on 10-lap-old tires or 20-lap-old tires. Yeah. It's about the same speed, more or less.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got to kind of tip our hats to Verstappen, Raikkonen, and technically Vettel as well, because he only pitted a couple laps later to take the tyres that far. Like half the race distance on a set of tyres. And people slated Pirelli over the years, but that is some incredible stuff by them 3 drivers to carry a set of tyres that far and still be competitive at the end. Like, we know what these tyres are like when they go off the cliff, but it didn't look like any of them, apart from Raikkonen maybe at the end when he dropped maybe a second back. We didn't really see much of a sniff of them properly dropping off pace or anything like that. They were just concentrating. Verstappen was just like, right, final corner, I'll save all of save the tyres or save all the energy in my MG UK and everything, just to then power off down the straight and say bye-bye to that Finnish driver behind me who's really scaring me, but let's try and keep him behind. But I just can't really comprehend that. And I thought also maybe talk about the little battle between Vettel and Ricciardo. I thought Vettel was he's getting slightly moany now, I think. He's a bit like an old granny going, oh no, don't do that.
He's kind of back in his old ways in that respect.
It was a good battle. At least.
I liked Ricciardo, and I said it on Twitter at the time. Like, that dude is relentless. I mean, just attack after attack after attack. And I mean, if it was a lesser driver that he was going up against, if it was not Sebastian Vettel, I think he would have gotten him on the first, second, or third try. But I mean, Daniel Ricciardo just does not give up, and I love seeing that fight from him. And that is it's probably why he's one of the fan favorites out there.
He knew deep down that he had to make that overtake. He knew that if he wanted to win the race, he's got to get past him. And we knew, because I think Crofty said 5/10 if you go over the line you've got a chance, and you noticed it was 5/10. It was like, here we go, we've got something happening here. And I think any other driver would have gone, maybe not, like basically what Raikkonen was basically like. But he was like, right, I'm going for this, and I've got to make it stick. He didn't make it stick. Tiny bit of contact. Oh well.
Yeah, oh well, he tried. He tried it.
Yeah,
I love the way that
Ricciardo still got fourth, Vettel still got third, no problem.
I love the way he darted for the very first move where Vettel first started complaining. Like the way he just pounces into the braking zone. A lot like.
But it's not a dive bomb. It's not a dive bomb.
Because he measured it. He really did measure it, and he kept within the track limits, kept within it, and it was all fine. It was really just a case of, okay, it's getting very, very close, but I still think it was fair enough. And the way he swoops into that brake zone, just like we saw back in last year at Hungary, where he overtook, what was it? I think it was Hamilton or was Rosberg. Yeah, he tried to overtake Rosberg and just pounced on him. It was actually exactly that same sort of thing, and it's just fantastic to actually see so much confidence within him to just go bang. We'll try this.
Well, the second time he attempted it, he did almost run into the back of Vettel. I think he was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was
and
close.
I think we've all done this when we're racing F1 or any other thing. Hit the brakes, tiny bit too late. Oh, no. Let's not go for that. Because you could see there was a gap. But you're like, no, let's not try that. And I think there would have been a crash. But that's what we all admire about Daniel Ricciardo. He's got a very cool head on him. And I think that's the first time ever, I think, that the Mercedes haven't really been that competitive, apart from when the Ferraris win, if the Mercedes trip up on themselves, that it's not Ricciardo picking up that win.
Yeah.
So obviously we saw in Malaysia 2015, Ferrari just completely outdrove them, really.
Yeah.
But definitely in 2014, when we saw Ricciardo pick up his 2 wins, it's kind of like a slap in the face now. It's like, oh, someone else has done that for me. And I thought it was very surprising. Another statistic, that was the fact that was the first time that Red Bull have ever won a race without Sebastian Vettel in the team. Ever.
Really?
Yes.
That's a very interesting statistic. I guess I'm not surprised to hear it, to be totally honest. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, because you got to think, the first win was Sebastian Vettel in 2009, and ever since 2014, all the wins came in that period. I was so surprised at that. And again, another statistic that Justin kind of pointed to someone else, is that's the first time that since 2010, Alonso in Bahrain, that we've saw someone walk into a team and get a debut win. And that's
pretty crazy.
That's
over
very,
half
very
a decade.
thing. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's great. Because just thinking back to, do you remember when Verstappen's like, I still need to get used to the car, really, but I'll just win the race.
Who needs to get used to the car?
Just crazy. Like he's completely like. He's just flipped one over on F1, really. Like, I'll admit it. I said last podcast that I thought maybe he would get a reality check, but he's really, really just shown how actually mature he is in terms of driving. I thought, I really thought that at some point he's got a crack under pressure. That he's 18, and I thought just at some point, and this would be the tipping point, that going to a team like Red Bull from Toro Rosso, that would be the cracking point where, okay, maybe he can't really shine as much as he has in other cars, but he really had full-on 100% confidence to just go and do the job he wanted to do. And you got to say, the way he drove, I think pretty much everyone's saying it on Twitter and I think online, I think he's definitely got to be a future world champion. If he's not, then that's
there's some serious
very
issues.
Surprising.
I think Max to me feels like a sort of Rosberg personality, where I don't think he feels pressure. To be totally honest, I think he's like a machine. When he is in the car, all he is thinking about is, where am I going to be braking for the next corner and stuff like that. Like, he's not thinking about that car behind him. He's not thinking about the world champion that's trying to overtake him from behind in that Ferrari. He's not thinking about that stuff. He's just thinking, he knows there's a car back there, but he's not overthinking it. So it's almost like he's like a combination of the Mercedes drivers. He's got that raw skill that Hamilton has, but he has that like kind of robotic, very, very precise sort of mind that Rosberg has. Yeah. Exactly. So he doesn't like crack under pressure or anything like that, but at the same time he seems like it might be too early to say this, but he might be the complete package.
Yeah. Like
brave words, but I don't think many people challenge you.
Yeah.
He's so young and he's already showing this much stuff. Like Vettel, when he started, obviously he won the first race for Red Bull, and when his championship winning season was, I believe, when he was 23, wasn't it? Or 22? 23?
22.
22.
Yeah.
So he's already got 4 years ahead of him and he's already won one race. Like 4 years in 4 years' time, I'm very intrigued to see how much he grows as a driver and like how much.
No, I'm sorry, 21. He was 21 years old. I apologize.
Right, okay. So 3 years, like how much he actually grows as a driver in terms of not just speed, but just everything. Like you said, the complete package, but even more so, like how much he really homes in that complete package and actually shows to be that. It's just gonna be crazy. And like, you know, if he stays at Red Bull and Red Bull ever get to the point where they're back at the front, it's going to be very tasty to see.
Then that would be the complete package.
Verstappen and Ricciardo going at it in Red Bull cars that were at the front. That would be very, you know, I think it was Helmut Marko that said that he thinks that these two are going to make the best pairing in F1. I sort of have to almost incline to agree with him.
Can you? No, but I think. We've in this podcast, we've talked so much about the Red Bull driver program. It's like our second nature now. We've spoken about it so much, but we've seen that they've been trying to bring up a Vettel type figure with Ricciardo, which a few people challenged you, and I said it maybe not have worked. Obviously, it's not worked because the car's not there.
Right.
But if the car is there, okay, there's Ricciardo. They've already got him secure in the team. They've dropped Kvyat because they thought maybe it's not time yet. But then they bring in a younger driver, but oh well. But they put Verstappen in there. With the I don't know, because we've seen a bit of stubbornness from Verstappen before, shouting no at his team. It is almost like an essence of Vettel, because we've seen Vettel be very stubborn. We've seen him not care about his teammates sometimes. You've got to feel, that's almost the thing that you've got to feel sorry for Mark Webber, because he kind of got brushed aside by his the world champion teammate. And I think that's kind of the hallmarks of a world champion. We've talked about this before. You need to be selfish sometimes. And Verstappen's, again, it's coming back to the complete package. It's almost like he's ready already. He's like,
I mean, that's brilliant for the Red Bull driver program. Like you said, trying to bring in a Sebastian Vettel, and I think, to be honest, both Ricciardo and Verstappen are there for the picking in terms of being there. Yeah. So when and if Red Bull get a good car, I personally think that eventually Red Bull will get back up there.
Right, at some point.
At some point, maybe even next year with the new aero regulations. But at some point, when that time comes, they've got two brilliant little seedlings ready to grow and sprout into what they want again, a second Sebastian Vettel era. It's really just, they've got the perfect plan, really. I mean, obviously it's very harsh to other drivers in the Red Bull program. They sort of kill off 3 young drivers' careers to make one good driver's career. But I guess that's sort of the business of F1 in a way.
Then again, though, you see that in every other team. We see a lot of the time where we just get drivers just pushed aside. Hulkenberg, he's been pushed aside into midfield.
Kevin Magnussen, Sergio Perez.
Exactly. I think this is like a thorn in Justin's side, to be honest. There is so much good talent down the field, but you've got to be noticed earlier on. And I think Verstappen's just like, I'm here. Yeah. Give me a good car, and I'll go win you some races and maybe a championship in the future. But absolutely insane, and we talk about 3 years' time, and he'll be matching Vettel. I wouldn't be surprised if Verstappen isn't world champion sometime soon, especially with the 2017 rules. But I think we can maybe focus more on the race, because we have gone on a massive jerking session over Verstappen, but who says why not?
Let's look to something that we haven't really actually touched on too much, which is that Mercedes incident. I'm sure plenty of people have their opinions, so let us know in the comments below who you think was at fault for the Mercedes stuff, and obviously let us know whatever you think about the race, Verstappen and all that. But the Mercedes, obviously after the race then we saw both of them go into, I can't remember the name for the place they went, but they went into one room, motorhome room. And then Toto Wolff and Paddy Lowe, I think it was, went up there and had a chat with them. And then they came
Niki
out,
Lauda too.
Talked to the media. And obviously that would have been quite an interesting conversation. I don't know where we go from here. Where do Mercedes go from here? What do they actually do to try and... I don't know. What do they need to do?
What do they do, though?
What do they do?
I think they're going to stop them from racing. Honestly, I think that, and that's going to be bad for the show. It's going to be very bad for the show if the Mercedes drivers aren't allowed to race anymore. But I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, drivers are sort of like children, and you have to manage them like children. And it's like, right, we gave you these toys to play with, and you guys did everything wrong today, so now you don't get to play anymore. So now whoever's leading into turn 1, now you get to hold your position.
But that was the problem.
That was basically Mercedes already did that.
Both of them knew that they were at Catalonia, which is a track that you can barely overtake on. And that got proved by Verstappen and Raikkonen. And obviously, them two in very similar machinery, it's going to be impossible to overtake each other unless you're on different strategies, which they will never be on anyway. So both of them know whoever's leading at the end of lap 1 is probably going to win the race. Unless it's some
Yep.
fundamental issue in the pit stops, a huge mistake, they're going to be winning the Grand Prix. You've got to think of it from both drivers' point of view. Rosberg is sailing, absolutely cruising at the minute in this championship. He's miles ahead. I think he's at 40 points ahead. And, well, he was just defending his position very hard, which is a very good argument for him. He can defend his position all he likes. But I think Hamilton knew he had to make some sort of manoeuvre work, because otherwise he's going to be losing more points to him. And going into Monaco, where Rosberg has done incredibly well for the last 3 years, something must have happened. Something needs to happen.
It's going to be interesting looking back at the very end of the season. I almost like when the crash happened and I sort of calmed down from spamming Twitter with "oh my god." I think I sort of almost went like, this is a really defining moment. This could be.
It is.
This could, like I always hate when Sky refer to this rivalry to old rivalries, like the old time big nostalgic rivalries in the past with Senna and Prost.
Senna and
but
Prost.
This legitimately was sort of those moments where you think, oh wow, they've crashed here, and this really works out in Rosberg's favour. And this is just a bit like, oh, this could be such a sticking point by the end of the season. Like, this could be, obviously, like we saw even in 2012 when Alonso crashed at Japan. It's going to be one of those things like, oh, what if they didn't crash there? It would have,
or when he crashed in Spa.
Yeah, exactly. Could have changed the entire kind of makeup of the end of the championship. It's just,
well, like,
could
the
not
fault,
believe it.
You can't. Like, I instantly jumped onto the Hamilton train because I'm a Hamilton fan, but you've got to... Just looking at the incident, if you haven't watched the incident, before you spout...
Recommend you go to F1.com. They have a replay.
Go
of
look at the
Hamilton.
crash first, because we've saw plenty of replays. Arav explained it perfectly earlier on. Hamilton got some insane run coming out of turn 3. I don't know how he managed it. I think Rosberg's I think the recovery system was starting to kick in, so it was starting to harvest some energy at basically the wrong time. And Hamilton, obviously, they went to the inside. Hamilton went a fraction of a second earlier, and there was one screenshot where he was a little bit far behind, and it instantly looked like it was Hamilton's fault. It instantly looked like he should have backed off. Obviously, the closing speed was that fierce that there was another screenshot where Hamilton's car, he had a full wheel alongside the car.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, that's instantly Rosberg's fault.
But that was like...
Two screenshots in the space of a quarter of a second.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the thing.
This is why it's probably a racing incident.
That's the thing, yeah. Because it's such a small time frame, the human mind can't react that fast. Rosberg's not going to react that fast to go, oh, quickly turn left a little bit because Hamilton's right there.
Yeah.
He would have just seen the screenshot before, if you can call it that. He would have seen the moment before that where he just saw Hamilton sort of going towards the right-hand side, but he probably thought, I can defend this. He surely has to move to the left. And the next thing he knows, oh, Hamilton's on the grass spinning towards me. So it's also from the third-person camera, when you just watched it on the first time live, it really did look like it was a case of Rosberg moving slowly to the right and Hamilton really darting through, really, as Cal said, wanting to rush into trying to get first place, and he sort of just almost overcooked it in a way. It looked like from the third-person camera, overcooked it onto the grass, and obviously history was history, and he slammed into Rosberg and they both got taken out. So... yeah, for me, it's a little bit iffy, and I do have to agree with Cal there in a sense. I really think it is a racing incident. It would be harsh to blame one of them, really, to be honest.
Well, the way I see it is because unfortunately this probably doesn't make for a good podcast, but I agree with you guys. I don't think any one person is to blame. I saw a lot of polls on Twitter where people were saying, is it Hamilton's fault? Is it Rosberg's fault? Or is it just a racing incident? And I choose the fourth option. I think they're both at fault. I don't think it's that no one's at fault.
Yeah.
I think they're both equally at fault for that. I think Rosberg defended very aggressively, and I think Hamilton attacked very aggressively. So I think they really brought this on themselves.
Yeah, I think also it's teammates. Like, come on, that's your teammate. You don't squeeze someone off the track that much. Like, we saw Rosberg do that in 2012 with Alonso at Bahrain. And obviously there's a famous quote that Alonso spouted from that. But I know it actually frustrates me a lot of the time when people say a racing incident, especially when you support a driver. Like, you almost want people to be against the guy who crashed out, the other guy. So if you're a Hamilton fan, obviously there's probably a lot more that's watching this. They're probably instantly saying, yeah, but Rosberg shouldn't have gone over that fast. But you got to think, Hamilton, he could have always backed off a little bit.
He could have...
Like, I know you know you longer go for the gap, whatever that bollocks is.
Right,
no,
right.
no, not all the time.
He could have easily just gone, okay, tap the brakes, swerve left, and then Rosberg would have.
And I
Ricciardo
think-
did that in
and
2014
then Rosberg
Monza.
would have been looking too much in his mirrors to be like,
Exactly.
oh, where's Hamilton? Is he? I need to get the inside. And he could have exactly what Ricciardo did, just switch the line. So.
And the way turn 4 is, I think you actually want to be on the outside.
Well, because, the
there.
outside turns to
which
the
really
inside.
surprised me because they're fighting for the inside line when I would think at least one of them would have realized that actually being on the outside of that very long right-hander, it's a very long right-hander. So if you're on the outside, you can get on the throttle a little bit earlier, you can run out a little bit wider, pick up a little bit more speed, and then also get the inside line for turn 5.
Basically, what Rosberg did into turn 1. To be honest,
Yeah.
because Rosberg
Yeah,
broke.
exactly.
I was surprised
Exactly.
how early Hamilton broke into turn 1. He broke a good couple of meters earlier, and Rosberg just went swimming
that was
round
really
the
crazy. I was
outside.
like, oh, hang on.
He made it look easy.
Yeah, he did.
like-
And I was just like, okay, that's that over. And then we saw, because that's the thing, I don't think anyone really expected the crash because of the closing speed. Like, Hamilton closed that quickly. There was like, oh my god, everything. And then everyone was like, flying up in the air, hands, whoa, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, like the
And-
first 5 seconds of the crash, as Hamilton speared on the grass towards Rosberg,
just
I
saw
was
that.
like, "This is." I was speechless. I was like, "This isn't actually happening in front of me. This is like a thing I've made up in my
It
mind."
seems surreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's exactly like I think I sort of am more inclined now, as Justin as he explained it, like both the driver's fault and as you said before, like the with the kids and the toys they're given. It's sort of exactly like that. Like they've both really just not complied with each other. And they really can't be doing that. Even if they are in a titanic battle, Hamilton knows he has to get first. You still, that's sort of the number one rule as a racer. You don't take out your teammate. You don't do anything to your teammate. Okay, it's sort of like maybe, oh, he's a rival on the grid. It's sort of okay. We'll gloss over it. But your teammate,
Yeah.
it's just a bit of a final straw.
I think a lot of people will point, because I think a huge thing that people like to do is they like to compare it to other incidents. A lot of people like to do this in the community. And
Turkey
someone
2010.
tweeted me, some people like to tweet, I think someone tweeted me going, oh yeah, but so what about Hamilton pushing Rosberg off at turn 1 in Kota last year? There was slightly different speeds. Like,
Right.
they're going maybe
In different
60
conditions
kilometers
as
an
well.
hour, maybe not 270 kilometers an hour going to a breaking point.
yeah. And even in that case,
And also,
in
it
that
was
case-
damp too at Kota,
Exactly,
so
yeah.
there's that excuse.
And
as
in
well.
that case, what was it? The majority of people thought that Hamilton was fair enough to squeeze him out because he was on the inside there, on the Kota incident. So it's
Exactly.
almost like, we saw immediately after the crash happened. I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, I think it was Nicky Lauda. I think Lauda was like literally like Rosberg was in the lead. He was he was going to the inside first. He had every right to squeeze it. But then obviously you can say the flip side, but you can't also just compare it just like they're apples and oranges. They're not the same thing.
Yeah.
No two incidents are the same.
It's a very different case, especially because of the
you
speed,
can't-
like you mentioned. Especially because
it's-
turn 3, you're going so much faster that the reaction time of a human, even F1 drivers, is not going to be fast enough.
Which is why a lot of people thought that Kvyat was unfairly punished for when, obviously, he crashed into the back of Vettel at Russia. Because sometimes the reaction times aren't godly. These F1 drivers do have good reaction times, but not that quick. They're not that good, and even their machinery can fail sometimes. And sometimes, like, they've just come out of turn 3, their tyres are baking hot. So they.
Yeah.
No, you can't compare incidents. That's one thing you should never do when it comes to certain incidents.
Definitely a very interesting one. So let us know what you thought in the comments below. I'm sure there'll be very lengthy discussions in the comments about the Mercedes and also Verstappen winning. So let us know all about that good stuff. Just a sort of civil war to begin off the race, and then what a story to end it, like a fairy tale story. So we sort of talked about the main big players in the race, the sort of top 10. We briefly touched upon all of them. Let's just talk through the final maybe half in case people were kind of interested. I mean, fair play if you are. So, obviously, Kvyat just about got the points in the end. Button got points as well in 9th place. Unfortunate for Fernando Alonso to retire yet again.
Yeah.
Really unlucky at the Spanish Grand Prix, and just in general, I feel like every time he's sort of trying to get into a good position, apart from Russia, albeit, when he's getting to a good position, something just goes wrong with the car. And it's like,
Yeah. It's just so unlucky, especially its home race as well.
Yeah, that's really
it's just such a kick in the
unfortunate.
balls.
And it just shows McLaren, even though they are improving, got into the top 10 for the first time in qualifying, just shows that they still aren't completely on top of the reliability 100%. Moving down to Haas, which I guess Justin will be quite happy about. Little bit of improvement. Gutierrez, 11th place. Showed up Grosjean, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah, very surprisingly, actually. To be totally honest, and it's not something I'm very vocal about because, I'm an F1 fan ahead of any one particular driver or anything like that. I respect the hell out of everybody that's involved in F1. But Esteban Gutierrez has never been a driver that has impressed me. And yes, he has not had very good luck, but I mean, in a lot of ways, you kind of make your own luck. Yep. And today was an improvement for him, but unfortunately, people aren't going to remember an 11th place.
No.
You need to get points, man. You need points. I mean, I think he's only scored points once in his F1 career. Something it was like Suzuka 2013. Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's been almost 3 years, and he was out of the sport for a little bit, but still. But yeah, I mean, certainly it does not seem like the Haas was nearly as bad as in Russia. So it was definitely a step forward. In all the craziness, I've actually completely forgotten what happened with Romain Grosjean.
I didn't realize he DNF'd.
Here it says Grosjean retired, +9 laps.
When did he retire?
Huh?
Did I miss
so
this?
That would have been lap 57?
I'm being completely honest, I literally completely missed Grosjean retiring.
Did he even show it?
They must not have shown it then.
If
all three of us missed
this
it.
This goes back to what we were saying. They were that focused on the front four. Wow.
Because we saw Hulkenberg retire with the whole
weird
Marshall who couldn't handle the guy, the Marshall,
sprayed his mate.
Sprayed it towards the car, literally fell backwards almost.
Oh, God.
So
someone tweeted that they got Laurel and Hardy putting out the fire.
You don't go and... first off, he tried to spray the car, ended up spraying his mate. Very good job there. Then tried to put out the tyre. Wow, that's hot. And then Hulkenberg was just like, give it me. God's sake. Just put it in and put the fire out instantly. It's like, give Hulkenberg some sort of like medal for that. It's like Pitlane back in, it was like 2010 when he put his car out. It's always the drivers that know how to put the cars out of flames. But that was one of the funniest moments of the race.
Retirement just went out of the blue. So he retired for some random reason. I mean, he was complaining a lot about the car not really feeling that fantastic this weekend. So.
All weekend long.
Very
he's
unfortunate.
been complaining. But it does seem like the Haas and the Force India are both, or at least were both, a little bit more competitive at Catalunya. We'll have to see. Obviously, Monaco's not going to be very strong for either of them. I don't think, with it being such a high downforce circuit.
Either. This is where a lot of people are pointing towards McLaren and Honda are going to do quite well.
Hopefully,
and Max Verstappen.
Well,
to be honest,
you never know. Through the streets of Monaco, it's all about the downforce and the chassis, and just pure driver skill more than anything. So we'll really see what he can sort of do to climb that Red Bull up. Cal's favourite team, Sauber, Ericsson in 12th place.
God, don't tell me.
Did you see any chairs, Cal?
Each other.
Did you see any chairs?
No, I don't think there were any chairs, but I find it more funny that I don't know who almost ran into who, but that was a little bit of an oopsie. Two teams crashing into each other. That would have been a
three, actually, because Haas touched a little bit too. Actually,
as well.
God. Ties. It was all going off
in
the rear end of the grid. They're all kind of just doing kind of bang in touch kind of racing.
Yeah, everyone likes to share a bit.
I know Justin was very excited about this. Palmer beating Magnussen for 13th place.
Yeah, I mentioned before the podcast that's obviously the big news of the day is Jolyon Palmer finally beating Kevin Magnussen. But
we didn't really see much of them, to be fair.
I fully expect it to be the other way around at Monaco, though. Since we were briefly talking about that, I think Kevin Magnussen, there could be an opportunity for him to score some points at Monaco.
Oh yeah,
definitely. Also showing that Russia was definitely a one-off for them in terms of getting those high points. Obviously we had the craziness at Russia to start off with. Spain, even though there was the crash with Mercedes, it was less so manic behind them. Like Mercedes sort of almost neatly crashed each other out and kind of just got off the circuit, whereas Russia was a bit more chaotic in turn 3 especially. So they definitely good on Magnussen back in Russia to actually pick up those points when he need to, but it is definitely going to be a tough time for Renault as a whole. But yeah, we've pretty much gone through the entire Grand Prix grid. Just final little notes. Just crazy. Verstappen winning, Mercedes. We all need a rest after that Grand Prix, to be honest.
Probably, I think no one can argue that that's probably the second best race of the year so far. I think that was, although the racing and the battling wasn't so amazing, just the script,
the nail biting,
the nail biting at the end. I think
crazy.
we all was. I think even if you're a Ferrari fan, I think a little bit of you is rooting for Red Bull and Verstappen, because I think it's the same with McLaren. I think everyone's got that slight feeling of everyone likes a top team to get back to the top. Everyone kind of likes that, but then as soon as you get to the top, like no, fuck off, go away.
Fuck off.
Yeah, we don't want that.
And it's also it's just that
let
good
the
feeling.
Williams win.
Yeah.
It's just that good feeling of like, oh, Verstappen, 18 years old, fan bloody tastic to win a race. So yeah, I think it's been a big win for Formula One today. I think Brundle put it quite well. You know, this is something that F1 needed, and something crazy that F1 can talk about now for a little bit with Max Verstappen winning that race. So hopefully that brings through. Obviously, Monaco, the next race, is obviously very interesting sometimes in different ways. Sometimes it can be quite a kind of traffic fest in a bad way, and then another way it can be quite tense if drivers trying to overtake someone. But we'll see about that. Obviously, we'll be back with the podcast next week with some midweek news. But yeah, I've been Aarav, Cal, and Justin. Thank you for joining me. Justin, thanks for stepping in for Tom. Been great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it very much.
So, yeah, if you want to get more podcasts, guys, then do subscribe to this channel. If you did enjoy both these two, Cal HD1 and Box Gaming, or Fake Ghost Power on Twitter, go follow them. Obviously, Twitter links above our kind of camera spaces. But, yeah, guys, if you have enjoyed that, smash that like button. Let us know what you thought of anything in that race in the comments below. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Cheerio!